Inward. You need to know about yourself first. Once you know about yourself, you know others better. And then you can win any battle. You understand where you come from and what triggered you and how and why you behave in that manner. And that helps you to have a more conscious way of dealing with it. Hello everybody, welcome back to a new episode of Henri and Mike. Today is the 29th of July 2022. It is a Friday. At the moment it's about 1:51 p.m. in the afternoon. Now we are here and all the tea houses here in Singapore.
We are at this place called Tea Chapter. It's a tea house in Singapore based near Tanjong Pagar. The nearest landmark, in fact, is Chinatown Maxwell Food Center. It's just maybe like 5 minutes walk from there. When Singapore first started, way back, there's like a lot of shop houses around this area. That's where all the tea merchants basically settle. This tea chapter, this tea house has been around for maybe 100 years or so, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, so you know, Queen Elizabeth II, the monarch queen of England, she actually came to this tea house when she was young. Yeah, I think maybe probably in 1960, end of 1960s or something, once when Singapore gained its independence, it came over. She was sitting in this exact room that we are currently at. So historical.
She's sitting at my position, right?
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Wow. So this tea house, there are 3 different types of tea concept. One is based on a Chinese tea culture. It's on the second level. And then the other side, there's actually a Japanese way of brewing tea. And on top, at the attic, is actually the Korean way of doing tea. So they basically try to encourage people to experience the Asian way of brewing tea as compared to those in India or maybe even in like Europe, East Asian generally. This is really a quick introduction about Tea Chapter as a tea house in Singapore.
If you're watching from YouTube, this is what you see all the visual. It's really authentic. This is the second time that I'm here actually, because the first time when Very, the friend of ours, visited us here in Singapore, we brought her to here. Back then we were in another room,
the
like Japanese room. Yeah. So it's like tatami whereby you sit on the floor.
Exactly.
But the room we are in right now is a Chinese tea house concept. So you sit on a chair basically. Yeah. And it's like a marble table and you have all the different decoration around you, like the Chinese calligraphy behind us, for instance. So let's start. I've been pondering this week, like I've been reading quite a lot of stuff and preparing for a certain topic that I also want to film. I don't have a word yet, but maybe you can help me out with that. Okay. So in our conversation just now, we use a lot of words like feel, F-E-E-L, and you also express a lot of emotions inside when we describe, you know, the commitment in the individual level to the professional level, also to the national level, right? So it's something I've been reading, but I don't have a conclusion yet. Okay. What is the difference between feeling and emotion?
I think first up, when you talk about emotion, things such as anger, happiness, sad, this kind of thing comes about. You know,
just emotion.
And then to me, feeling is more like maybe as a reaction to that. You know, like for example, today I feel happy. What do? I smile, I laugh. Today I feel sad. What do? I might cry. I might have a sad face. You know, basically don't smile. Right? If today I'm angry, I'm fuming, and then I might do some action or something. So just to express. So the feeling is very much of an expression through action maybe. Yeah, but the emotion is the more innate, raw thing that you have within you.
Part of it, I think, is a bit opposite because we tend to use I feel. I feel no doubt is a reaction thing. It triggers something physically that you express that emotion. Okay. So let's talk about emotion and feeling. From my understanding at this point of time, I'm still figuring it out, is emotions usually from the past, a past event. Feeling is a present moment. The difference between emotions and feelings from a psychological perspective or definition is feeling, there's a consciousness there, conscious effort of doing it. And then emotion can be both. It can be conscious and subconscious. Let's put it this way. Okay. So emotion, what you mentioned about, is from the within. That I totally agree, because it describes a certain event or circumstance that happened, and then it triggered you to react. The reaction part is the feeling we're talking about. The example you gave us, I'm happy or I feel happy. It can be both because it needs to depend on the verb you're using. I am means what you're feeling inside, your state of being. But then I feel is a verb, so how you're reacting to it. The circumstance you're talking about in the emotion part is there's a certain event that occurred. Today, Mike and Henri, we are in a tea house. We are drinking tea, having a conversation. That, for me, is a joyful kind of atmosphere.
So joy is the emotion.
Yeah, and
then happiness is the feeling.
My happiness.
Okay.
Like I feel happy about it because I'm spending quality time with you. I'm just unpacking it as I talk and I think at the same time. So that's from the psychological perspective. And then in the Western world, they have this psychologist called Robert Plutchik, Plutchik. He developed a framework.
Okay.
So it basically breaks the emotion into 8 basic emotion category. You develop into the next layers, and then the next one. This is what I understand to this point, is that a lot of people, including me, the reason why we have challenges in describing how we feel or what we are or who we are is because of the emotion. We are lacking of that vocabularies to describe what we are actually feeling and who we are actually.
Is it because we assume that emotions and feeling are the same, but in fact when we try to unpack it and go further, they are different?
The thing is, when you talk about, oh, that's my emotion, I'm feeling so emotional and I feel, you don't necessarily think about it, you just say it. I feel happy. I'm really happy today. When you ask why, that question go back to your inner part, the emotional part. And that's why you need to describe that. And that cut across culture. I was just comparing from the language wise that we are using English now. And I was reading a book called Gefühle by a German author. She's a trainer called Patricia Patz. She does not use the 8 framework that Robert Plutchik used. She described 10 different myths, like whether it's the emotional versus rationality, men versus women, different. There's 10 of them. I can list it down because I'm still processing the whole book. Instead of 8 emotion, she break it down to 4: fear, joy, sadness, and anger. Anger. These 4. So every 4, so 2 and 2, you have one combination. 2 and the other 2, you have another combination, and 3, you have another combination. So it basically has the same kind of effect of expanding out. So from what Robert Plutchik and Patricia Patz, what they're using is like an extension method. Even though the ground can be different, the basis can be different, but they're not very far apart in this case. It's just how they describe it. So you see, we come back to the topic of how do you understand better? First of all, what's the difference between feeling and emotion? So I think from different perspective, like from the language perspective, you understand it differently. From the psychological perspective, you understand it differently. From the stoicism part, you experience or you understand that differently. Stoicism in this case about feeling emotion is just that you can control what you can, but you just basically don't really care about the things that you cannot control. So that's the main point about stoicism. So which means that you control what you can. It means you only concentrate those. It's just the doing part. Reaction part. What I want to compare is something I realized that from the Eastern world, when you talk about emotion and feeling, what's the translation emotion in Mandarin Chinese?
情绪啊.
情绪. When you look at the 2 characters, 情 and 绪, 情 has a heart sign on the left.
The 部首.
The 部首 on the left.
心字旁. Yes.
So it comes from the heart. It comes from within, and that's very closely related to the emotion. This word, it comes from the old French, means émouvoir, to move. Certain things that stir up from within. You got what I mean? Both Eastern and Western, they have this similarity there. Emotions from inside. It describes something that you're feeling inside, that you're experiencing inside, that leads to the feeling that you have the reaction part. The second word in Mandarin Chinese is 绪, 情绪的绪, right? 绪, on the left hand side, that's the sign. It's called 丝. And that is like a thread, when you do the sewing the thread thing. And that usually describes a beginning. At the beginning in Chinese, in some way, it also has a meaning of the starting point, the source. In the words itself, it already gives you the clue of where it comes from.
The source is actually the heart within.
The heart from within, correct. Then what's the Mandarin Chinese word for feeling? 感觉. The first word 感, it also has a heart sign. It comes from within. But 觉, it leads out to the external part, because 觉 at the bottom there's a 见, 看见的见, like you can see.
Like 觉醒, that the outward, like
you're awakened, and also you see it like physically. So that's the reaction part. It comes from the within, and then you react to it. When I look at just the word itself, it gives you the clue of where it comes from. The process of from within to outside. So I think that's the beauty and the interesting part of language perspective on that. I think it can discover a lot when you unpack further. Why is it I would like to talk about emotion and feelings today is because it helped me or helped us to some extent understand ourselves better. Sometimes I can say I'm emotional and I'm feeling this and that, but why? And you also lead to your consciousness and subconsciousness, how you react to it and why you react to it.
Okay.
Sometimes you don't think about things like that, But then when we start to read deeper, it just thought there's another world out there. I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? Like the audience who are listening or watching us on YouTube, what do you think about this? Like, what's the difference between feeling and emotion? And is it in your culture or in your language itself, it has a different meaning there? Or can you find a clue from those language itself? Because by understanding that, you can understand yourself even further. And that will help you unpack a lot of emotion that you cannot deal with it in the past. And that helps us to move on.
I'm thinking from benefit perspective of knowing. Of course, there's benefit of you knowing your emotion and feeling. You are able to understand the why about the emotion, and you're able to explain and express your feeling better. How does it help then? Like maybe in work setting or in relationship building.
孙子兵法 in the art of war, 孙子 actually mentioned about this phrase, 知人知己,
百战百胜.
百战百胜. If you want to know others, you need to know about yourself first. Once you know about yourself, you know others better because you know how they think. And then you can win any battle, however it comes. So understanding yourself means that you understand in what circumstance, what situation you react in that way, why you react in that way. You understand where it comes from and what triggered you and how and why you behave in that manner. And that helps you to have a more conscious way of dealing with it. You see, and that's when that stoicism comes in, or that's when like the feelings comes in. Right, you can deal with things better. And if you transfer that to the professional level, it is helpful because it kind of strategize how you want to move forward, how you communicate with the other person, your colleagues or clients, because you understand the emotion of your colleagues, you understand how they think, and you understand how your clients react to it, why that's so. So you give a better solution for them, and that is in your advantage.
Is there any steps that we can incorporate into our dealings in life when it comes to emotions and feelings so that it's more structured? Because as you're saying, I just thought the growing up process for most is just going through it, and then there's not much mention about emotions and feeling in terms of teaching. There's no structure. It's only in hindsight that we are talking about this and realize that, hey, this is not part of an education, but it somehow has been taught through the thing called life, and we figure it out along the way. That there's no really proper telling you that, oh, you know, Henry, you got to look at happiness this way. This is how you feel.
Yeah.
You know, this is what is happening within you. Is there a framework or a steps that we can take to better recognize this and process it, such that we know ourselves better, and at the same time we know others better, then we can be more strategic in approaching the things we face in life?
I don't have an exact answer for it because I myself also exploring that. But I do agree this is something that the school has not really taught us. The education that we were in has never really approached that subject. But subconsciously, we have been influenced by that as well. You see, we're being taught how we should react in a certain way in whichever circumstances that is. If let's say we want to understand ourselves better, take a pen and a piece of paper or your diary, write down how you feel and what you're feeling, and ask yourself why. So you go down to the basic, why, how, what, and then write it down, and then you can apply different frameworks that is out there to really help you to synthesize and understanding better, because everyone's different, right? Everyone's approach is different. But I think going through that process will help you to understand yourself better. I think this is everyone's homework. I mean, no doubt there are people who say that this emotional thing is just bullshit. You need to be rational. Yes, then be rational for yourself. Be rational. I don't have any disagreement if there's you are an irrational person. If you decided to take the rational way, you can. But then history always suggests itself that why is it there are so many people having mental health issue, especially through macroeconomic events, micro events like, I don't know, like a war, COVID, or any other thing that's external. It affects our mental well-being. It means that certain things that you do not really understand. So the emotion has always been there, but just whether you choose to approach and touch that basis.
Yes, you know, as you brought in one keyword about mental well-being, which is something that is growing, is getting a lot of attention lately.
Yeah.
I just want to tie in another thing about emotion. As you were saying, emotional intelligence came to mind. So the question I have about this is, it's also a jargon that people use as compared to intelligence quotient, IQ versus EQ, which is emotional. So a lot of times, you know, when it comes to IQ, people will be talking about whether it's in nature versus nurture. Is it inborn in you? And then nurture basically means that it can be trained, right? So we spoke about just now the emotional aspect of things and feeling. We know that it's there. It's natural for us to feel it, you know, to experience that. But is it trainable? Is it teachable? And then in linking that, to mental wealth that's happening right now? Why do we see so many mental disorder people, especially during the last 2 years pandemic, people go into depression and all that kind of thing?
I think the two forces here. There are some people really, they are having like a mental challenge, like really literally, and then that put them into some medical situation that they cannot control themselves. They're just people like this. So in that case, I would say that's kind of like inborn. I think that everyone has emotion within us. It comes with it. It's just we are at a different level of feeling it or dealing with it.
Whether you suppress or whether you express
exactly. And that can come from the nurture part, like your environment that influence you. In German, there's two words for it. You're either Kopfmensch or you're a Bauchmensch.
What does that mean?
Kopf means your head. It refers to someone who's very rational. Bauchmensch. Bauch is like your stomach, your gut. Someone who listens to their gut, like gut feeling.
So it's conscious versus subconscious?
No, it's about like someone use their brain to think more, and someone trust their intuition.
Okay.
Conscious and subconscious, two different things. Conscious, you're using your mind, your
rational
brain, to think. Like you're literally understanding that you're thinking,
processing.
Okay. Subconscious in this case is half. In Chinese, we call
潜意识
or 半睡半醒. That means you are in a state whereby you're half asleep, half not awake, and you are half awake. For instance, if this iPhone dropped to the floor, like just at the edge of the table dropping on the floor, what will you do? You'll try to catch it.
Yeah.
That's your intuition. So that's like subconscious things already.
It's a natural instinct.
Yeah, natural instincts there. That would be how I describe it. So the definition you just mentioned, conscious and subconscious is different.
It's a different concept altogether from the two German words you mentioned. Okay.
Yeah, so coming back to the rationality and intuition part, emotional part, there is a difference, but just to everyone, how far will you be willing to go for it? Right. I do believe that for the most rational people, you still have to suppress some of your emotion. You cannot be having zero emotion. I do not believe in that.
I think more or less people will have the emotion, but how much you express through your feeling, that's different.
Yeah, so that depends on your outside world, the world that you grow up in, your environment, and how you deal with things. And also later time, how you're willing to approach the topic, right? Like, will you be willing to, just as we say, like take a piece of paper and pen to write down how you feel, why you feel about that, and what you feel about it exactly. So those are the little homework we should do, like really to understand ourselves better. Because once you are able to understand yourself better, you're able to not only help others or understand others better. There also is another question, how you use it, right? The method, is it for your own gain or literally just helping others? So that's another topic, right? So for those who are listening right now, what do you guys think? What's the difference between emotion and feelings? Right. How do you define that? Do you see it differently? Let us know in the comments below. Let's conclude this episode. The words for this week, for this episode, is commitment and inward. Thank you very much for listening and watching us. And I hope this setting, you do enjoy that. Next time we're in Singapore, don't forget to come to Tanjong Pagar Tea Chapter. We'll list everything, the details in the comment below so you can find it. So do come by, have a cup of tea. It's really relaxing. It's just like you are doing your catch up. In Swedish, people call it fika, like coffee and cinnamon bun.
Right? Yeah, but it's just a tea form.
People call it Kaffeekuchen. It's just the whole process of talking to each other and enjoying the tea or the coffee along the way. So be kind to yourself, take care of each other. Don't forget to smile. And very importantly, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like. So this is Henri.
And this is Mike.
We shall see you in the very next episode.
Signing off.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.